content of this channel is for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification button. And please, feel free to share the video. Thank you.
What's good, everybody? You know who I am, man. I'm GG, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. It's the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up with no chasers, man. And before I get things started, like I always do, I want to make sure that you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you ain't subscribed to the Green Gorilla channel already, and hit the bell notification button so you can stay abreast of what's cracking here. And also, as I always do, man, again, shout out to my haters, man. I hope y'all having a good afternoon, man. Have a good one, okay? And, you know, I got to give a shout out to all the members of the Green Gorilla channel before I get started, man. You know, because y'all help me to keep things going here, man. So big up to Lord Hamal, Brotherly Love 215, Lee Ways, Michael Ross, Vincent Lindsay, Michael Pierce, Beautiful Trauma, Quiz the Poet, Black, Quizzard ADOS, and Jaztec. Big up. Big up the Shadow Observer, J. Cleveland Green, Sugar T, Artisan MC, Big Said 658, Nasiana, Kyle J. Sura, Kareem, Troy Warren, Black's Word 404, and Jeff R. Big up. Big up to Mrs. K.P. Bailey, Cutting Up with the Jones, Show Me, Ricky Dawson, Alan Wiley, The Face, Mantis on Break, Electrician 480, Life of Commerce, Apex Prowler, and Julius Ferguson. Big up. Big up to Truth 7360, J. Bino the Advocate, Herbert Lewis, D. Scott, Marvin Evans, A. Wilson's Ghost, Rogus Son, L. Fry, Timothy Blewett, Jeffrey Speed, and Marvin Battle Jr. Big up. Big up to Mart Holt, John J., the IDP Expressions, Afro Troop TV, Adam Tahuti, BGS Ibmore, Ignatz Mouse, Brian Peace, Papa Dida, Scott Haywood, and Black Uhuru Strikes. Big up! Big up to Dr. Tree 33, Leroy Honeycutt, Broken Blade, Super Tech, 77 Base X, Brian McMurray, K-Ron S, Anthony Davis, Donnell 360, 7th Coast Dojo, and Pulpit 28. Big up! Big up to Charles Rogers, Rick Ross, Sandra Jean 955, Charles Gilmore 3, Patricia Colley, Greg, Barry Little, Mr. Valentino, Jason Hales, Black Men Being Brutally Honest, and Cameron 87. Big up! Big up to Doc LaRock, Mark Swift, Odd Collar, Donald Watts, HipHop.catv, Coach Hotep, Old Soul Chief, Mr. Blue Collar, Barnolas, I'm Just Jules, TD Hip Hop Media, and Drew Main. Big up! Big up to Mr. Heat, Sir Anthony, MLR, Universal 178, Rasheed Barnes, Aaron Smith, DH, Beware the Revelator, Gold Professor, and Aaron Infinite. Big up! And last but not least, man, I can't forget my fallen brothers, Force Windu, David Carroll, and Kevin Samuels. Big up, man. And also on the Patreon side, I want to give a shout out to Dr. Ben Vincent, Charles Fontentot, I Am the Light of My Father, Waffle Weave, Lamont Latimer, William Joyner, Rufus J. Winfield, Dornell Smith, Excalibur, Jason Warren, Anu 219, Pursuer Prisoner, Taz, Dragon 59, Adrian Hicks, Jay Bailey, Mr. Michi, and Asangwa. Big up to all y'all, man. Thank you so much for your support. And on top of that, y'all deserve a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you so much for your support. It goes a long way, man. Appreciate that. And if you're wondering how you can support the Green Gorilla channel as a member, here's how you do it, y'all. What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. Today, I want to introduce you to my new membership program that consists of 5 levels where you can invest in the Green Gorilla channel on a monthly basis and receive level-specific perks. Memberships are special because they improve the quality of the content of the channel and will help me to be able to keep the channel going. Now, to participate in the Green Gorilla channel membership program, all you have to do is hit the join button, which is located right next to the subscribe button on my channel page. Now, for all of my subscribers who decide not to participate in my membership program, nothing will change. The content will keep coming the way it always has. Thanks for watching, and be careful out here, people. Bless. All right, man, we back. You know who I am, man. I'm GG. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. It's the place where black men are allowed to express themselves freely, straight up with no chasers. And sometimes, people get that twisted and they think we ought to be politically correct, but we're not politically correct over here. Okay? But at any rate, today I brought a good friend of mine in to have a conversation. He goes by the name of Admiral Smoke, also known as Sanddog. What's cracking with you, Sanddog? What's happening?
What's going on, Team Root, man? Look, just like you, it's been a busy day, man. I had my first run to the emergency room as a parent. The routines, ear infection. Routine stuff.
Oh man, I know that, man. Hey, bro. God bless you, and happy Father's Day, by the way, if I don't get the opportunity to tell you, because I think tomorrow is Father's Day. I don't keep up with this shit, man. These holidays.
Man, well, happy Father's Day to you. You know what? It's my first time hearing it in life. I'll take it.
Hey, bro. Hey, man, I'm 21 years up in it, so you know how that go. But happy Father's Day to you, brother, man. And how's the medical services over there in the UAE? In case people don't know, Sanddog currently lives in the United Arab Emirates, okay? And so, what's the medical care like over there?
Oh, man, it's pretty good, man. Like I said, it's really good. You have public hospitals here, private hospitals. A lot of them have, state-of-the-art technology. So, a name you may recognize from like Cleveland Medical Center or clinic, they have that in Abu Dhabi, and then I go to certain private hospitals that are here that names that are hard to pronounce that you wouldn't remember anyway. But the medical care team is good. It's really good.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the doctors that are over here in America, many of them, come from that portion of the world anyway. So
correct.
It ain't like you're getting substandard health care because it's not not American. That's what I'm trying to articulate here.
Oh, no, that's facts. The only time a quote-unquote Native American ever did anything to my body was when I was in the Army. Before then, before I left America, all the doctors that ever examined me, right, came through customs.
Damn, ain't that something?
Yeah.
Ain't that something, man? Well, yeah, I've had a wide array of doctors treat me. I've had black females, Asians from, the yellow race of Asians. I've had the brown race of Asians, white folks, men and women, so I haven't had a primary care physician that's been a black male, but I did when I was a kid. I had a pediatrician named Dr. Tillman in St. Louis, Missouri, man, and she had like a medical office around Northland Shopping Center. Boy, if you know about Northlands, man, stand up. Hey, man, you got to be old school to know about Northlands, bruh. Real talk. Shout out to Northlands, man. Real talk. Shout out to Northland Shopping Center, baby. I spent many damn weekends in that fucking place, man. Because my OG, she loved to shop, man. And you know how they take your kids to the mall, ain't buy me a goddamn thing. She shopping like a motherfucker. That's a lie, though. She kept me happy, man. She kept me happy. But anyway, shout out to all the brothers out there in the chat. I see you, Ray Knowles. I see you, Hybrid Ninjas. Peace out to Leroy Honeycutt, the St. Louis native. What's cracking with you, bruh? Electrician 480, Ron Matthews, big up. You know, and I'm listening. Big up to you as well, sir. So anyway, man, you know, we haven't really caught up in quite a bit of time. We chat back and forth, you know, periodically, but we haven't had the time to actually, you know, run ideas across each other on a stream, you know, and it seems like, man, months and months, maybe about 6 months.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I've been, like I said, I've been caught up with that, and then we had the. I was working with the expo that was out here. I don't know if you're familiar with the Dubai Expo, the World Trade Fair that we had here. So I was a member of that for a while, and that's where I got soaked up.
Oh man, so what was that about?
Oh man, basically what an expo is, or what's formerly known as a World Trade Fair. This is when nations. This is where you invite nations from all over the world into your country, and you sell your country to them and their corporations as a stable or a good place to do business.
Okay, dope, man. That's dope. And what company did you represent?
What company did I represent? I was here with the UAE itself. So running the entire event, entire event itself. Yeah.
That's why they call you the Admiral, bro.
Yeah.
That's why they call you the Admiral, bro.
Yeah, bro. But nah, man. But yeah, so that's what it is, man. So I just been busy with that. And then, I wanted to holler at you and rock with you again, man. Because football season is around the corner, and that's also one of my hiatus times as well. Let's go Giants.
Oh shit, man. Okay. Hey man, I'm a Rams fan, but they turned coat, man, and got the hell out of St. Louis and went to Los Angeles again, Hollywood, fuck them. But I mean, that's the team I'm gonna root for. I'm gonna stick with it, bro. But at any rate, man, I want you to give us some cursory remarks about this narratives to facts theme that you came up with, and the reason that you came up with it in the first place. And I think it all really, in my estimation, it comes from conversations we were having about black men doing things, like having actionable courses, right, that they've committed over our entire journey from slavery to now.
Yes.
Right? So there's a lot of misconceptions about what we've done, what we haven't done, what we need to do, and, about the content and the character of black men today, compared and contrasted with black men of yesteryear, or whatever the case may be. But from your perspective, man, what does this mean from narratives to facts, bro? What is this all about?
Yeah, man, but that's exactly it, right? Because, you hear a lot of discussions in the manosphere, right? And you have a lot of people that are talking in circles. And, you get younger people who come in who are not aware of our history or aware of American history in general. And they come in presenting ideas and solutions that have already been done before, right? That have already been done before. But for the most part, you may just need somebody to pick up the mantle and keep it going, or certain ideas just don't, or just haven't worked at all. And so when you look at like a lot of the media that came from years past in terms of, out of the far left or, feminist agendas or conservative agendas, right? You'll be led to believe that black men have never done anything. Like we just kind of just sit here and took it. And then as a result of it, the black family suffered, black women suffered, black children suffered. And all of that is actually, a lie. It's a bold-faced lie. And so pretty much in the United States, you're talking about from the colonial era forward all the way till now. Again, there's tons of evidence of black men taking action for themselves, whether it's fighting to get off a slave plantation, or education rights, rights to vote. Again, a right to be in the military, right? A right to be in the military and serve as officers, et cetera, et cetera. So, the thing about it is to break that narrative and remove from my perspective what is a lot of gynocentric thought about Black men, our place in American history, and also our homes and families as well.
That's dope, man. Because contemporarily, or right now, you got a lot of Black men, even Black men in the manosphere, who, quite frankly, they believe niggas ain't shit. That, like, Black men are some cowards, some lames, trash. I mean, they say the same kind of shit. Okay? So it's important to get the record straight and to understand what the history is, so at least we could live up to the achievements of people from the past, or learn from that history, so we don't repeat the mistakes that they made.
Correct.
Right? Now, I want to give a shout out to Constructive Consultant. Thank you for your donation, sir. I appreciate that. I'll give you a bomb for that. He says, is this a freestyle, Dr. GG? Appreciate the broadcast. Sanddog, his broadcasts are informative. Thank you, GG. Look, we planned on doing this for quite a bit of time, but we had to get our schedule straight. And I know it's an early stream, specifically for me, because usually I go on at least 5 p.m. But I have to adjust my schedule for Sanddog here, man. You know what I'm saying? He said, hey, it's 10 p.m. where he's at right now, or a little even later than that. So, just basically, accommodating him and making sure that he has the ample time to do what he needs to do. So, begin. Let us know, man, the idea is that, Black men were cowards. We really didn't resist against slavery. We're in the position we're in because we lack courage. So start at the beginning. I mean, start where you want to start. Okay, I can't hear you. You're breaking up, Sanddog. You're turning into a robot, Sand. You might have to quit and come back. Yeah, he's having technical difficulties again. This brother is halfway across the world, so bear with us. I don't know what happened to his ability to stream, but he'll get back in a second, I reckon. But yeah, the only thing I'm trying to articulate is that there are a lot of brothers out here right now who believe that we are where we are because we lack courage. We don't have fortitude. We don't have the ability to persevere. We're uncivilized, and so on and so forth. Sanddog, talk to me.
Yeah, so again, man, so what I wanted to do with this series, man, is as long as you would have me, is that there are periods in American history that I would like to cover, again, to kind of break this narrative. So one, we're starting today with we're just kind of setting the landscape for this discussion. So this part here is the introduction of the colonial era of America, right? Again, how America, we're going to kind of talk about how America was shaped, just a quick synopsis of it, how it was put together. And then I think once you grasp that understanding of the reasons why America was put together and what it was put together for, or at least the colonies. Let me rephrase that, what the colonies were put together for. And then it'll for the most part, it'll show you why a lot of actions took place the way they did, or things were animated the way they were. So today we're going to talk the colonial era, and then again, GG, when you have me again, the American Revolution, the Second Great Awakening, the Jacksonian era, Civil War, Reconstruction, and First Wave Feminism, right? Nada of race relations, Black codes and Jim Crow, the Great Migration, the Great Migration and Industrial Revolution, the Civil Rights Era, desegregation, Moynihan Report, and then it'll close off with the modern era, which will be the war on drugs, fourth wave feminism, Million March, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, so that's a lot, bro. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna make sure that this gets done, and we're gonna you know keep it going until we complete it. And this is informative, and you know we need to show some support for each other, man. Support the channel, you know, if you can. And I want to give a shout out to Elwood H. Johnson, who's done just that. Appreciate you, brother. He hit me up on the Cash App. Appreciate that. So yeah, bro, talk to us, and every now and then I'll ask you some questions and interject. Okay, so yeah, go ahead, man, kick it off.
No problem. So again, so when you talk about, like, again, the reasons for colonialism, right? So you have to remember that in Europe, you know, when you talk about like what probably like your 14th, 15th, 16th centuries, right? Europe starts to become overcrowded in certain places. There's a lack of economic opportunity, a lot of poor people. You'll say, you know, a lot of poor people are emerging, and so in order for these societies to survive, they now have to find, you know, new forms of revenue, right? And so in England specifically, you get this guy by the name of Richard Highclere, right, who has somewhat a discourse on Western planning, and he talks about the benefits of colonialism for England to kind of chase after France and Spain in terms of westward expansion. And he talks about, you know, how this would not only benefit England, but it will also benefit God, right? Because at that time in Europe, you had the schism between the Catholics and the Protestants, right? And so at the end of the day, you know, you had people from the British society who felt, you know what I'm saying, who felt that the world needed to be saved from Catholicism, right? Because it was a path to hell, and, you know, all the other things that they would believe, you know, about the Catholics. Also, too, again, like I said, the economic and social opportunity, right? Jobs for poor Europeans, vast resources and profit for the crown, and then also to catch Spain. And so in that agitation of being left behind, you know, by Spain, you know, Elizabeth I kind of sends out her thugs, her posse, guys like John Hopkins and Francis Drake. And so these guys are like private plunderers, man, or pirates. And so pretty much they did a lot of things to disturb, you know, the Spanish colonies, you know, and their trade. And so this kind of provokes, you know, beef between, you know, Britain and Spain. And so you get into your first I don't know if they called it a war exactly, but you're getting into your Anglo-Spanish War in 1588, where ultimately the British would eventually defeat the Spanish. You know, the fact that they were better equipped and better sailors, right?
Yeah, they had a better navy. But let me pump the brakes real quick, just in case you missed it and didn't catch it. Admiral Smoke basically made a reference to a brother. Well, he's not a brother, actually. The white guy, he's a man by the name of Richard Hakluyt. Okay, that's Hakluyt, and he made an argument to the English crown or the powers that be in England for colonization. Now, Spain had already been involved in the colonization of the New World. And first and foremost, you should already know that Columbus was the person who was supposed to have discovered America, okay? But not to mention the fact that, I mean, there was a guy named Amerigo Vespucci who supposedly found it earlier, but we're not going to even get into all that. But the point is, the Spaniards had already been here. The French had already been here. The Portuguese had already been here. But England kind of like was waiting in the wings. And they decided to get involved, okay? And when they decided to do so, Queen Elizabeth, that's the first, right?
Yes.
She sent out her thugs. You know, John Hopkins, okay? The one who has a hospital, famous hospital named after him, right?
Facts.
Sir Francis Drake, right? Now, I don't know if you know about Drake, but I know about him through science. I mean, the man was a man of many talents, but one of the things that he did was he created a way of inquiry that helped contribute to the development of the scientific method. But I ain't gonna even go into all that shit. But ultimately, the argument has been made by Richard Heichlut to actually open up markets in the colonies that have already been found, to try to find employment for the poor people in England and to try to alleviate some of the overcrowding, right? And they wanted to compete on the world stage. So the thugs were sent out, and England had a superior navy. I mean, they that's what they're known for during the colonial era, okay? So go ahead, proceed, my brother.
Yeah. So, again, so you go from there. And so now, you have Elizabeth the First. Again, she ends up passing on, and then you get King James, right? And so King James finances further exploration. And so you had a couple of other colonies that they tried to establish prior, like in Virginia, Roanoke Islands, I believe it is, and those colonies will fail up until you get to the first colony, which is all of our own personal favorite, Jamestown, Virginia. Right?
Now, it's important for y'all to understand what Sandog just said there. Their first attempts to settle new colonies did not work. They weren't successful, but they persevered. They kept at it. You understand? So everything that you attempt doesn't always work at first. Go ahead.
Yeah. So again, you get the Jamestown, Virginia, which is the first colony. Now, the interesting part of it is that once they get there, the colonists, they find out, one, the land is difficult to work, right? They're not accustomed to the physical labor that it takes to actually cultivate that land, and then a lot of them either starved or fell to disease. Right. And so again, and this is where you get your Thanksgiving and everything else. And so you have the Native Americans, for what I think is called the Powhatan Confederacy, right? That saved them, through the winter. And so this is, these people knew how to work the land. Obviously they could hunt. And so they were able to help those Europeans, survive the winter. And as the story goes, we all know that it didn't turn out too well for them. And so even despite the help from the Native Americans, many of them will either continue to starve, or die from disease, right? And so now something great happens, right? They end up getting this crop called tobacco, right? And so tobacco is what's really fueling the colonization in terms of money and everything else. And so now you get to the point, man, I think they're moving about maybe, if you want to call it the drug game, right? They're moving about 15 million pounds, right, of tobacco, again, back to England, back to Europe. And the demand of it is so high that the wealth that they gain allows them to kind of spread from Virginia, as far as up to Maine and as south as Virginia, because the Carolinas and other territories will belong to either the Spanish or the French. So with the tobacco crop, they were able to expand, fairly quickly. And so now you get into, 1619, where African Americans begin to show up, at least from the Anglo perspective, right? You have the first ship that shows up with slaves, as they will say, 20-something odd Negroes, that would come in as slaves. Now, the funny part about it was that in Jamestown, Virginia, right, you have a split. You got the elite, which will be like in the Tidewater region, right? And and these guys, they're the money makers, they're balling. So before they came over from England, right, you had something called the headright system, right? And the headright system, again, this was a form. Again, this was like I can't call it a caste system, but again, it was a system on pretty much basically in layman's terms, the more money you got, the better things will work for you. So for people who could afford a ticket to the United States, where every ticket that they bought, they'll be guaranteed a certain acre of land. And for the men who could not afford it, right, they would have to work as indentured servants for 5 to 7 years, on somebody's land or plantation before they can have land on their own, of their own. And so when you fast forward, what happens is obviously the wealthy men end up with the best land, and then all the indentured servants end up on the western frontier. And out there on the western frontier, one, the land, the land is harder to work, and then, oh, by the way, you're surrounded by hostile Native American tribes.
For sure, for sure.
You know what I'm saying?
So let me slow, because I just want to make sure that, they know what it is that you've talked about thus far. So you get Jamestown, okay? I'm just recapping, right? You get James. So one of the first successful colonies for the English is Jamestown, right? And they form an alliance tentatively with the Powhatan Indians, Native Americans, who helped them through, a series of crises. And then, that became what we now celebrate as Thanksgiving, right?
Correct.
And in the colonization, they found the development of a brand new crop, to England at least, okay? Tobacco. Now, the colonies brought a lot of new shit to, the old world or Europe, okay? Tobacco is one of those staples, right? Because they hadn't had tobacco before. And we all know, I don't know if you smoke tobacco, if anybody does, but that shit is addictive. So now they have a means by which to actually, invest in something tangible and to make money, okay? But it's difficult to do, okay? Very difficult to do, okay? But eventually they would begin to deal with cloth, okay? Cotton in particular, okay? Eventually that's going to become the thing that they, take on, like as one of the main exports back to Europe. But go ahead, Sandog.
Yeah. Okay. And so now, you got the tobacco crop going. And so again, so now here's the funny part, right? So now the indentured servants, right, are finding themselves dissatisfied. Again, you're out there on the frontier, you're surrounded by hostile Native American tribes. And now what you have to remember is, the funny part is, again, it was a going back and forth between them and the Native Americans, right? So sometimes some of the tribes will start some stuff, and sometimes they'll start some stuff. And so now tell me if this doesn't sound familiar, right? In terms with the indentured servants, right? So they become dissatisfied because they believe themselves to be overtaxed, ignored by the elites,
yes.
And here's the other kicker: not enough women, right? Because the women,
that's right.
Because the women that did come over to the colonies, guess who got them?
Who got them, bro?
The rich dudes got them. You know what I'm saying? The ballers, all the guys sitting up there in Tidewater, got them. And if I was a woman coming to a foreign land, why would I want to be out in the western frontier with a guy that's broke, surrounded by hostile tribesmen?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And so again, so this is what happened. And so now, there's you start to kind of get this. You're entering into what people will call Bacon's Rebellion, right? Which happened
exactly, yeah, exactly.
1676 and 1677, or what history calls Bacon's Rebellion. And so now you have my homeboy, Governor William Berkeley. So William Berkeley was, he was appointed, by the royals. And during that time in Virginia, you had something called the House of Burgesses, right? And the House of Burgesses would later, evolve into more or less like the Virginia's Commonwealth Senate seats and all of that other stuff. But initially, it was the major lawmaking body, in within the colony of Virginia. Right, and so the men's gripes are going to the governor, but the governor himself personally is benefiting from the fur trade with the Native Americans, right? So,
right.
So for the most part, he's dismissing what the indentured servants have to say, and he's like, yo, I got my fur trade business, and we can work things out. And so now enter Nathaniel Bacon, who's married to his cousin. right? And so Nathaniel Bacon, for the most part, is hot because he's not in the inner circle, right? He's not in the room. He's not down. You know, he's kind of like, you know, he's with the elites, but he's not, you know, he's not in the you know, they're not letting him into the muhahaha room. And
Right, right. So it's almost like somebody who wants to play as a frat, but you know, he can't get online.
Yeah, correct. You know what I'm saying? And so now I hate the bras, you know.
Right,
You know what I'm saying?
right.
So pretty much, you know, again, that's what it is. And so when you get to Berkeley and when you get to Bacon, right, you know, they have very different ideas on governance and what the relationships with the Native Americans, you know, should be. So, you know, again, so from Bacon's perspective, you know, his ideas are more or less, to my knowledge, is not as friendly with the Indians as Berkeley believes that we should be. So again, so Berkeley, kind of like, you know, that dispute with the Atlanta Compromise in a sense. And so, you know, Berkeley is like, you know, we can make relationships with Native Americans that can help us to foster, you know, better relationships with the other ones who either might not be on our side or they may support us against them. So having some kind of relationship with them, you know, again, is important. But to my knowledge and what I've read and studied, you know, on the opposite side, again, that's not what Bacon felt. And so the funny part is that Bacon himself is not from, quote unquote, amongst the poor as the white and black indentured servants are. Like I said, he comes from wealth, and one of the reasons why he won them over is because he showed up to the party with liquor.
Right. And one thing. So okay, let's just get this record straight, and I want to put it in, you know, regular common sense terms.
Yeah.
So you got an elite planter class, you know, people who are basically taking control over the tobacco industry in Virginia, you know, in Jamestown at this time. Okay. And they have a friendly relationship with the Indians because they're trading, you know, skins with these people. And so they have this amicable, you know, cool relationship. That we're cool with the Indians, right?
Correct.
But you got a group of indentured servants and slaves, and prior to, you know, Bacon's rebellion, black and white laborers were getting along. Okay, I mean, there wasn't this hard and fast racial division between African, you know, the African immigrants, if you want to call them that. Okay, slavery and, you know, the caste system that we know as chattel slavery hadn't really actually been invented at that point. Okay, and so the indentured servants had alliances with these Africans, okay? And that's important to know because Bacon's rebellion is a turning point. And Bacon, in and of himself, he's from not a super uber wealthy family, but I mean, he's wealthy enough to marry the governor of that colony, okay? Or the person who's presiding over the colony. What's his name again? I can't forget.
It was Berkeley.
Berkeley. Yeah, William Berkeley. So, so he's married to his sister, but he's close, but he's really not in the in crowd. He's kind of forced to the fringes, and he basically forms an alliance with the indentured servants and the Africans, and they attack the Indians. They start raiding Indian settlements and shit like that. Okay. So go on with the story, my brother.
Yeah, and so, you know, and to your point, now for the wealthy planter class, this is a problem, right? United black and white, you know, indentured servants, you know, a united working class is a problem, and so now they have to find a solution, right? They have to find a solution to kind of put an end to this, right? So now you get into, you know, separate laws or separate ideas, right, for how black people and white people are going to be dealt with in the United States. And so a little bit before the Bacon Rebellion, right, you have the case, I believe it's in 1640, right, the case of John Punch, right? So John Punch, was an indentured servant that ran away, right? So him and two white guys ran away because of, the ill treatment of what they were getting from the guy that they were working for. And so basically, after the courts were done, right, the white guys got off, and then Punch will be the first. He will be the first person in America to be made a servant for life.
Right.
And then you follow that up with these are two black men. And so again, and for those in the chat, or Gigi, you can even clarify this for me, because again, I know that there are a lot of people who like to bring up the story, about Anthony Johnson, the black man that owned slaves. And so Anthony Johnson had put a case. So John Casser was another black man that was in indentured servitude to Anthony Johnson. And that man ran away. And when they went to court, Casser was saying, look, I served my time, and and this guy's just trying to keep me there, right? And so ultimately Johnson wins the case against Casser, and then he's also made into a slave for life, right? And so this is kind of what will animate the separation of races, the caste systems of white and black being created, and then black people being made slaves, in perpetuity. So now, because remember, Bacon's Rebellion ends in 1677, but then there are a lot of things that are behind the scenes that are happening. And so now, within law, they now have an idea with the law, because previous to that, right there, in British law, you have something called paterfamilias, right?
Correct.
Where the men own the children, right? So even under paterfamilias, when the father owns the child, even if the child is born through a slave woman, right, the father will still claim that illegitimate child. So now in 1662, they go to partus sequitur ventrum, right, which is what the womb. What does that mean in English, GG? What follows the womb.
Right.
And so that's what it means in English, what follows the womb. And so basically what they're saying at this point is whatever passes through the womb of a black woman is automatically a slave. Right.
And that's very important, man. That's key. That's some key shit right there. Because that's one way to circumvent men's ability to have influence over their children, black people, okay?
Yes.
That right there, and this, one can argue that the gynocracy is also rooted in this practice, okay? Say the name of the practice again so they can remember it.
It's called partus sequitur ventrum, right?
Okay.
What follows the womb.
What follows the womb.
What follows the womb in 1662.
And this is supposed to be contrasted with paterfamilias, which is basically men's stewardship, the right to have stewardship over their children. Okay?
Correct.
Or patrias potestas, meaning that the father has absolute ownership of the children that he bears. Okay? Yeah. Or that, emanate from his coupling with a woman. Okay?
Correct. And to add to that, Gigi, not to cut you off, and so at that time, also too, what passes through the womb of a white woman is born free.
Right. So it's a lot to unpack here. So one of the most important things to understand is this, okay? Yeah, you had slaves brought to America, okay? But prior to being labeled as backwards and ontologically inferior, okay, black people were scarcely thought to be different than whites, okay? In the early colonies, right? Before this event that we know as Bacon's Rebellion. Now, of course, I'm not going to say that there was no ethnic prejudice that existed during this time. That would be quixotic for me to say that. But just because Africans don't look like Europeans, Europeans have pasty skin. Africans have sable skin, right? White people or Europeans typically have lanky hair, whereas, Africans have woolly hair. But their phenotypical differences, their body differences, didn't stop them from eating, sleeping, and socializing together, even running away together under these new conditions in Jamestown, okay? And it didn't stop blacks and whites, indentured servants and slaves from taking up arms together. They took up guns together. And they did so during Bacon's Rebellion. And this is in 1676. And they did it to challenge the economic control of the planter class, the elite, okay? But, and I'm just recounting here, the planter class was stunned by the Black-White Alliance, this African-European alliance, and they developed a potent strategy to neutralize it. So what they started to do was to use balkanization techniques, okay? Factionalism, okay? And they supplanted that multiracial populist movement, named Bacon's Rebellion. They did so with a racial bribe, okay? As long as whites promised to keep black people in check, they would be granted an honorific status above them and would be regarded as wage earners instead of perpetual slaves, okay? And Partum Sequitur Ventrum, okay, basically introduces this concept for black folks only because the divisions, and this is 1677, right? Or around this time.
Yeah. So for Bacon's Rebellion between 1676 and from 16 to 16, that's 10 years, 1670 up to 1677. That I know. 76 to 77.
Okay, yeah. So you got 1 year of conflict.
Yeah.
Like militaristic conflict. And eventually, of course, we know that the planter class won. They had more resources. Okay? They could buy arms. And so eventually you see this caste system begin to develop. Okay? And this is where this is the rudiments of chattel slavery. Okay? Along with this Partum Sequitur Ventrum. Okay? This legal precedent that's basically set up to where patria potestas and pater familias is done away with, okay, for black folks, okay. It's so the ownership of the child is not even granted to the woman, because the ownership of a black child is given to the slave driver, not the driver, but the slave owner, right?
Yes.
So. Continue, my brother.
Yeah, and so now, again, so now to what Gigi was saying. So now, they split up what was once a united working class, right? And so now the head right system is restored, and each man or white man is given 50 acres of land, right? And now this allows the elite to continue doing their things, which justifies them to continue to take land from the Native Americans, right? Now, and then right after that, or during that exact same time, now you end up with the Virginia slave codes of 1705, right? And so for those of you who are like, Admiral Smoke, where you going with this? What I'm looking to do with this first part is to just, for you, I'm looking to set up colonial America, some of the actors that are involved, and how we got to this kind of race-based caste system that we live in, right? So again, this in and of itself is a whole series. This is just kind of like a prelude, right? Because I think that you would need to understand, and I at first it took me so long to do it because at first I wanted to start with European history, so that way you could understand Franco, Anglo, and other European societies and how they work, and then you could see how that would translate in the Americas and eventually impact people of African descent. But that'll be something for another day and another time. But I really want you to understand how things were set up and how that animates what we're going through now. So when you see people on TV like debating guys, I don't know, that are on mainstream media, and you have black scholars that use slavery as an argument, and they say, well, slavery isn't an argument. Again, things like partus sequitur ventrum. Again, that goes to show you in terms of African Americans how it goes to show you how slavery would begin the dysfunction, right? The dysfunctions that we will adopt and ultimately make our culture.
And right? what's funny about this, bruh? Again, this partus sequitur ventrum precedent that was basically a legal doctrine passed in colonial Virginia, okay? And it was prior to Bacon's Rebellion, okay? Just to let people know, okay? Yep. So it's not as if this wasn't already set in motion, but it was difficult to get people who are living out in the fucking frontier, man, not to socialize with each other. You understand what I'm saying? So it's a legal doctrine, of course, and it was passed in 1662. But you got these people actually bonding, they're socializing, they're living together, they're fighting together, okay? Developing friendships together under these harsh conditions, okay? And so when they see the bond beginning to grow stronger between blacks and whites, particularly black men and white men from the worker class, the planter class is like, we got to split this shit up, okay? We got to do something. We got to take further action, create new policies and legal precedents to cleave them even further, okay, than what we have. Because a law ain't shit. Because you can have a law, but people don't necessarily have to practice it. And they might not even be aware of what the law is, okay, because they're not legal scholars. I mean, these are fucking guys living on the frontier. They probably can't read. You understand what I'm saying? So why would they give a fuck about partus sequitur ventrum? You know what I'm saying? They wouldn't even know what the hell it is, okay? So at any rate, go ahead, Sand Dog, man. I just wanted to get some things straight, bro.
Like I said to you, I'm with you. And so now, like I said, again, shortly after Bacon's Rebellion, right, you get into the Virginia slave codes, right, of 1705, right? And so now, again, so now what happens is you're transitioning so much, out of the indentured servitude, because now what the elite are doing, they're taking what were once dissatisfied white men, and to some extent they're not bringing them into the fold, but they're giving them just enough to keep them happy and at arm's length, right? And so again, at arm's length, and so ultimately, at the end of the day, I guess the stance. With a lot of the white settlers, or some of them at the time, or well, a lot of them, right? Because that's what it would take for this stuff to be carried out and executed, right? Like what did Pac say, right? You got to get yours, I got to get mine. And so that was more than likely what their stance was. And so in 1705, what ends up happening is, right, separate courts, right? A white man cannot work for a black man, right? Allowed for, the free trade of slaves, right? Protected by the courts, right? And new property rights for slave owners. And now, on top of that, or just a year before, in 1704, in the Carolinas, you have what's called the establishment of slave patrols, right? Which will be the beginning of our police departments. And the slave patrols are designed to do what? They're designed to shut down slave revolts, right? And for slaves who want to run away, catch them, punish them, and or if not kill them, reintegrate them, back into the workspace, right? And so what you're seeing now is the evolution of America. And before you get to an actual nation called America. And so again, I wish Nameless Protagonist was here, because this was his observation. And what the observation that Nameless made was that one of the reasons why there's such a struggle in America to bring people together is that America was a corporation before it was a nation.
Correct. I mean, it was all about business initially, and how could, you know, an elite class of persons make money, make profit.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, so you had, I forget the name of the company, but what's the Virginia, it was incorporated. I can't remember what the name of the damn company is, man. I can look it up, but it might take me some time to do that. Let me see. The company that controlled Virginia. Oh. The Virginia Company of London. That's the name of the shit. The Virginia Company of London, right, was basically chartered by King James I to establish in 1606 a colony in North America. Okay? Now, that's how the colonies were set up, as corporations. Okay? And it was all about the bread. And I mean, like everything else is with these folks, man, it's all about money and resources and power. Okay? And they brought slaves here, but it was kind of difficult to prevent alliances from indentured service and slaves when they both were pretty much in the same condition. I mean, like indentured service didn't have rights. Okay? They didn't have the right to vote. And so they were pretty much thrust in similar conditions. And the technology of control through slavery hadn't yet been mastered by the English in the colonies. It didn't happen yet. But in 1705, I mean, and even as early as 1662, they had begun developing the legal precedents to create the technology of chattel slavery. And just to let y'all know, no, chattel slavery is not new. Okay? It ain't new, okay? And the doctrine of partus sequitur ventrum, you should have some indication of where it comes from because it's a Latin term, okay? And it is a Roman civil law. And there are remnants of Roman law in common law. And of course, common law is the tradition of law in England, okay? You got different kinds of law in different kinds of countries or nationalities in Europe, okay? The Franks have a different, history of legal precedent and how to make decisions legally. The same with the Germans and so on and so forth. But, pretty much they've found a way to, centralize how they put down legal precedents. But I'm not going to even go there because that would be a very tangled web to weave at the current moment. But go ahead, man. Proceed, my brother. You gotta come back in because you Borging again. You gotta drop out and come back in. You gotta drop back out and come back in because your connections is bad. Sorry for the technical difficulties again. We're talking to Sanddog, also known as Admiral Smoke. He resides in the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. Okay, so he's on another side of the planet from where I am. I'm in Texas. He's in the Middle East. So you got to bear with us here. But all we're trying to do is give you information. So we want to use facts as a means by which to talk about our predicament instead of all of the emotivism, all the emotional finger pointing and shit like that. It's important for us to get this straight. Because if you don't know where you've been and how you got there, you don't really actually know how to get out of it. Okay? Sanddog.
Yeah. And so this is what we're saying. So now when you talk about, and like I said, it's a quick thing that I have, again, that I pulled, from Encyclopedia about the colonization and company. So now what you're seeing, and like I said, this is what's important. Again, what animated these actions in the Western Hemisphere And so now, again, a lot of the conversation that we have in the manosphere, right? So now you're seeing, so I'm not going to say the Latin, but now you're seeing the start of what would impact our families when you look at in 1662, the concept of what follows the womb, right? Slavery in perpetuity, the early laws in Virginia, right? Because remember, Virginia, the colony of Virginia is home to the oldest lawmaking bodies in the Western Hemisphere, right? So, you know, you have to. That's what I'm saying. You have to start, and you have to look at these types of policies, and then through the series, you'll see how again black men fought, how we managed to operate despite these policies. But what you'll see is that through racism, right? You'll see government and corporate bodies double down on these policies, right? They'll double down on these policies. So, and we'll talk about how some of these policies started off as this, and then over time it evolved. It evolved into something else, but with the same agenda, right? So now when you talk about, kind of skipping it into the corporate world, right? Which we all like to argue about in terms of high value man or whatever the case might be. So you have colonizations and companies. And in the 16th and 17th and 18th centuries, a great deal of Europe's long distance trade, cross-cultural contact, and colonial enterprises was designed, engineered, and managed not by monarchies or the state, but by companies, right? These companies, whether primarily designed for plantation or long-distance trade, generally possess royal charters that detail rights to wage war, conduct diplomacy, control commerce, and administer settlements in the known and undiscovered world, while their propriety and viability has been a matter of debate since their creation. Such bodies were a crucial feature of early modern European empires. Now, and so again, what does that mean for us, right? Because now you have to remember, so when you were on the plantation, for the most part, right, you were a corporate slave, right?
You were property of the corporation.
Correct.
And these corporations, sometimes they were headed by members of the nobility. But again, it's important for people to understand what was going on in Europe during the time. There was the beginning of a challenge of absolute monarchies. I mean, right around the time of the turn of from the 17th to the 18th centuries, you're going to have the era of enlightenment in which, European men are going to become wealthy, and they're going to begin to push back against this whole concept of divine right of kings. Okay? That's what's going on in Europe. And at the same time, they're trying to get their own freedom. They're enslaving other people across the world and committing acts of genocide, all for profit. They're waging war with natives. They're waging war with other, European powers, particularly the Spaniards, the Portuguese, and the French. Those were the major players as far as I know, okay? And the Dutch as well, okay? Can't leave out the Dutch, okay? So all this shit is going on. And while it's going on, the run-of-the-mill, the average person, prior to the advent of all these policies and their enforcement, they were kicking it. They were forming alliances with each other. But then here comes the racial bribe, which makes this distinction between people who are born into slavery and people who can work their way out of indentured servitude. Okay? So, but the funny thing about this shit, though, is, with this part of Sequitur Ventrum legal precedent, is that you can have a white father and be born if you got a multiracial kid and the kid was born to a white woman, that kid would be free. You understand what I'm saying? But not the other way around. And that's just, and it made for some strange shit going on in America in some instances, okay? Because you had white women that was getting pregnant by Native American men and, African men. So just to let you know that. okay? Because you had a lot of free Negroes in the American South. And a lot of people don't really, study or understand that history as intimately and intricately as they probably need to. But go ahead, Sandog.
Correct. So again, so now in early agrarian times, like you guys heard me mention, the factors of production when it comes to economics, right? And so now you'd be able to take this and connect the dots to see how American society is going to evolve. So, and there are many models and factors of production. It says that land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship are controlled by the family. But now what you're seeing from Europe, from this new model coming out of Europe, and what's happening and what will become the United States of America, you're starting to see where corporations are starting to or will control the factors, or ultimately will control the factors of production. And so we'll have this discussion later down the line, because this will play into not for the love of black people, but for certain states in the future, why they would not want slavery in new territories, right? Because the people that are going into the new territories, they want to be able to control that wealth for themselves and make that decision, and not this kind of pseudo state entity, called the corporation. And so you'll be able to see, later going down the series, you'll be able to see how it evolved. And so let me show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Look at all of these companies. East India Company, Dutch India Company, Dutch West Indian Company, Danish East Indian Company, French East India Company, Hudson Bay Company, Swedish East India Company. And I'm just simply running down the list. And even if we got, white brothers and sisters who are listening to this program, right? I guarantee you'll be able to connect the dots from what happened from Bacon's Rebellion going forward, and what people will experience even during the Industrial Revolution, being locked in factories and forced to work, right? And children coming up with the black lung and all other types of nonsense. And so, now you're getting to see how the environment in America is shaped, what's shaping our culture, the things that Americans themselves will come to value, both good and bad, And so, now you're gonna move into, and like I said, I'll save it for the rest of the series. But from these companies and from these actions of slavery, now you're going to end up with this kind of, it's weird, because you're going to end up with this type of pushback that will ultimately lead up to the American Revolution. But the problem is that the American Revolution, especially from an African American perspective, is something that's halfway done or halfway cooked. Somebody pulled that chicken out of the oven a little bit too early.
Hey man, that's a good way to put it. And you know what? Let's not give them too much at once. Like, I'm glad that you've created digestible pieces, to begin and end. You've given the overall picture, but you're giving a piece of what's going on. And so we're not just giving them a whole, 7-course meal all at one time. We're bringing it out in segments. So that's the appetizer, okay? Now, this shit ain't us going off on black women, okay? This is a series about history of how black people got to where they are, institutionally and socially and politically, okay? So we need to know this, so that when we begin to try to figure out, like, okay, how did we get here, we can be accurate instead of just talking a bunch of shit and talking about people's attitudes and their feelings and your response to their feelings, okay, and what they're doing. Now, this, I think the catchword today is partus sequitur ventrum. That's the phrase of today, okay, as far as I'm concerned, because this is what we have today. like this is one of I say that there's several ways that, the gynocracy has become entrenched in Western culture, especially among black folks. But this is crucial here because this is basically taking away fathers' rights for black men from the beginning. And the way to try to heal it or rectify it, I mean, fuck. How do you rectify some shit that's been going on since 1662? How? Like, I mean, then motherfuckers say, well, I want the solutions. You give me the solution. Okay, dog. First of all, a solution is a chemical term. You do know that, right?
Yes.
A solution is a chemical term. And it's a homogeneous mixture of two or more substances in relative amounts that can be varied continuously up to what is called the limit of solubility. Okay? I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's not easy to decipher, but even a chemical reaction it's a process that takes place through time. There won't be a quick remedy to this, if there is a remedy at all. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, because
so you got a lot of guys that they're like, okay, and I'm gonna bitch about this shit. I ain't gonna bitch about it on Father's Day. And shout out to all the fathers out there, by the way. You know what I'm saying? Appreciate it. Hey man, support your scholar, man. Thank you very much, Ghetto User. You deserve a bomb for that. Appreciate that. Straight up. Thank you. So yeah, support the Green Gorilla channel, man. You're not going to get a lot of content like this from a black male perspective other than in the manosphere. You understand what I'm saying? So you're going to hear these terms thrown around, but you're going to hear them thrown around in polite language by white men, even black scholars. I mean, most of them are fucking like gynocratic, so even if you get black scholars, most of them are going to try to, toe the politically correct line. You get it straight up, no chaser here, okay? So at the end of the day, bro, that's very important for guys to understand. Like, how do you dissolve something that's entrenched in law and policy for over 400 years, bro? Damn near 400 years.
Yeah.
A little under 400 years. How do you change that shit overnight, bro?
Correct.
And then you say to guys, well, I want actionable items. I want to find out what we can do now. Like, first of all, you need to inform yourself in order to create. If you're gonna try to create the solution, well, you at least need to have the fucking facts together, right? What's the use of developing a plan of treatment for a disease and you don't even know what the disease is? That's like, going in and trying to, remedy a fucking heart attack by taking a motherfucker's liver out. Or dealing with the circulatory system by taking somebody's liver out or some shit. Or taking one of their kidneys out. It ain't gonna work. So that's why I say we gotta have the information first, and then once we get the information, then we can begin to try to develop ways to work around this, especially for black men. But at the end of the day, it was never intended for you from the beginning as a black man to have any stewardship over your children. It was never intended for you to be able to have that. And it's odd that we would say this shit close to Father's Day. At the very same time, you got a lot of black women talking about, I need to have myself celebrated as a father. I need to be, that nigga ain't shit. You saying the same shit that these corporatists did at the beginning, at the settlement of the colonies, in order to keep us in a subservient position and to keep us neutralized. And it's odd that there are a group of people, women and men alike, who want to continue on with this fucking backward ass slave-based practice. And now they calling it, freedom from the patriarchy. And the odd thing about it is, this this shit ain't stopping no patriarchy for real. White dudes still run this motherfucker. The last time I checked, who runs the military, dog? Is it women running the motherfucking military?
No.
Who's running these corporations, bruh? Is it a bunch of women CEOs and shit running these corporations? I'm just being honest, dog. Are they running these fucking corporations, dog?
No, they're not.
Who's running the legal system in this motherfucker? Like the presidencies, the governorships, the senatorships, and the House of Representatives. Who is running this motherfucker, bruh?
Not me. What Chris Rock say? I don't know who's winning, but it ain't us.
I'm just saying, like, I mean, to me, it's the reason I say all this is to say, who is it impacting for real, other than us? I mean, you could talk about, see, you can have a surface level conversation, or you could be playing dog whistle politics, or you can have somebody, it's called equivocation. I don't know if you've ever heard of equivocation, Sand Dog.
No.
Where you mean something altogether different in what you're saying, but it's bringing about a results in a certain kind of effect. Okay, I'm gonna look it up. Equivocation as a tactic. The use of ambiguous language to conceal the truth or to avoid committing oneself.
Yeah, correct. Yes.
So a lot of this shit is equivocation as far as I'm concerned. Like, white women are not dumb either. They're not stupid. They know what they've been doing from the beginning. They always, and they're helping their own kind in a specific kind of way. But the effect is, white women know that they're never going to be able to totally control the male population of their own race, bro. They know that shit. They're the dominant class of persons. They're the dominant group. They know that women know that there's no way they can dominate the military. It'll never happen. And subsequently, they'll never be able to control politics. Now, you might have a few tokens and shit like that, but the people making the decisions and developing the tactics and the strategies, it's going to be dudes. Am I lying, saying, dog? I mean, I'm just saying, bro.
No, again, this is facts.
I'm just saying, bro. I ain't trying to be ignorant. I ain't trying to hate on women or no shit like that. I'm just saying, look, we can talk about politics and we can talk about facts. We can talk about what's practical. We can talk about what's ideal. And I think a lot of times, a lot of politics is idealistic, but it's not grounded in facticity or objectivity. And it's really not anything other than equivocation in a lot of instances. That's just my viewpoint, man. But anyway, bro. And I know this ain't gonna be we bitching about women or whatever the case may be. So it might not be as popular as some of the other things we've done or we do here. But I think it's necessary to walk through these steps.
But it's not even that, GG. But look, again, in terms of, because remember, right? So these unions presents what if they call it quadroons and octoroons and everything else. So, all the way down from somebody who's half black to an eighth black, right there. There was a terminology. There was a terminology for you. So at the end of the day, right? Like I said, this is what shapes. Like I said, this is what shapes our culture. So at the end of the day, as dark as I am, right? If you handed me Vanessa Williams as a baby and put her in my arms, right? Hey, as far as the laws of the land are concerned, she's my child.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or at least belonging to a black mother, right? And so basically, this is how. So again, through this action, you could pretty much see how this artificial ethnic group that has been forced together has become African Americans, right? And that's something that a lot of people don't realize. Like we're not a we're not a natural occurrence, like, in a sense, like other groups of people. Look, I know that there are other groups of people that come through slavery and war, and all of this other kind of stuff. But we the creation of what you call an African American is a is a is a is a I don't know what you would call it, a hellacious laboratory like process. But again, so starting with, like I said, starting with our favorite word today in 1662, which is portus sequitur ventrum, right? Which is what follows the womb. So again, so based on that, that not only shapes Black men's control over family and children, right? But it also shapes what's going to define our ethnic group.
And what's crazy about it is, and you got to think about this, it's unnatural for a father to not have any kind of sentimentality, any love for his own children. I don't give a fuck. Like, if I fucked the Asian woman today and had a baby, you don't think I would love that baby, man? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or a white woman, or a fucking blue woman. It don't matter. You don't think, if I know that that's my child, you don't think I would have some sort of natural affinity? That's natural, biological, instead of legal or institutional or social,
Yeah.
or political. You understand what I'm saying? So this,
that's not how it works when it's just business, Gigi. That's what, this is what I'm saying. So God willing, through this series, we're going to really, like I said, because again, and the next part of it, I'm going to break down some of these companies, man. And so as you pull things apart in these series, man, you will see how unnatural it is for everybody involved.
And I always said this shit, bro. The African American population are the bastard children of white men.
Yeah.
That's just a fact. You can hate it or love it. And like Indigo says, the original deadbeat dads. And shout out to Dr. Johnson, man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Shout out to him. But thank you so much, Sandog. I mean, I think that we should keep this shit, if we can, to an hour and 30 minutes at a time. Now, if anybody wants to ask any questions, they can. But I don't know how much time you have. And I know it's got to be, if it was 10 o'clock when we started, it's got to be 11:30 now.
Yes, 11:30 my time, yeah.
So, if anybody has any questions, we'll take 2 or 3 questions and then we jetting up out of here. But if you don't, I'll give you a minute to chime in. I left the link in the chat box. And if you want to ask a quick question to Sandog, you can. If you cool, we about to be out of here. What follows the womb? Spell the Latin. Okay, ghetto user. It's called partus sequitur. I'll make sure I spell sequitur right. Parter sequitus ventrum. I think I spelled it right. Let me make sure I spelled this shit right, man, because I want to make sure it's right. I think the U, is M, it's V. Okay, it's not it's M. I was just making sure, yeah. EM, okay. That's the term right there. And thank you, Too Watchful, for your donation. Appreciate that, sir. Appreciate that. But for those who are watching, the name of the term is called partus sequitur ventrum. Okay? That's how you spell it. That's how you spell it right there. It's a Latin term, and it comes from Roman law. But anyway, man, Sandog, man, I appreciate you coming through, man, and hollering at us.
Yo, dog,
and having this conversation and getting to the bottom of some of this, man. I think this is going to be really illuminating over the course of the next few months as we do this. And You know, however often you want to do it is how often we'll do it. If you want to take a break from doing it, you know, because the research might be intensive, you could take a break or whatever the case may be. But you let me know when you want to get on and do some more of this.
Yeah, no problem. Because like I said, the next one will be the American Revolution. And so, like I said, I'm just narrowing down because, you know, again, Gigi, you know this, and the guys in the chat, you know this, man. That's what took me so long, because Gigi, I slipped through so many damn rabbit holes, man. You know, like how you call it with BGS drift. So I just had like just studying this stuff, man. It's mind blowing. You know what I'm saying? It's really mind blowing when you look at, you know, again, how our country evolved, how we came to be, you know, what animates actions, how things are shaped. And so, you know, again, and just, you know, to say it one more time for the chat, sometime in the future, I will talk about European history, and in terms of, you know, and like I said, how that was brought to the Americas, man, because at the end of the day, they fled Europe because they wanted no parts of it. They wanted to get away from it. But unfortunately, one of the things that people carry with them when they go anywhere is culture. And so, again, this is just all we're doing now is just setting the foundation, right, of taking away the narrative that black men are lazy, that we haven't done anything, or to that case. So between this one, colonial America, and a short one about the American Revolution, and between the Civil War, you'll get to see how the environment has been shaped for black men and where our culture actually comes from, because that's what culture is, right? Culture is how you respond to and negotiate and deal with your environment.
Hey, man, super dope as always, my brother, man. I appreciate you coming on here. You're a blessing to me. I think you're a blessing to the space. And, you know, you have, you know, experience in dealing with military campaigns and being a logician. You know what I mean? You know, somebody who basically deals with logistics and making things happen. Okay, you are the action guy. I mean, when it comes to action, you are the one who plans and carries through action, correct?
Correct.
So let's get all of this action shit out of the way.
Yeah.
Okay? Before you act, you have to plan to act.
Correct.
Otherwise, you acting a fool. Right or wrong?
Facts.
Super facts. So even, you know, anyway, man, I want to give a special shout out to all the fathers out there again. Enjoy your day, man, tomorrow or whenever the fucking day is. But just enjoy yourself, man, and take a load off, man, and pat yourself on the back, man. And don't be too upset about the partum sequitur ventrum, man, that you're still experiencing. It's all part of the, you know, like they say, it's the master plan. Niggas killing niggas, they don't understand. It's the master plan.
You better spit my water out, man.
I had to slip that out, man. It's the master plan, bro. Just crumble some herb, drink some brews, do what you do. Understand, this plan been in effect for since 1662. Understand that, okay? It's been orchestrated before this motherfucker became the United States. Okay? So get that through your head. And what political and social function does it serve? And look at the people who are trying to preserve it in one fashion or another through whatever kind of reasoning or ideal position or philosophical perspective that they take. Pay attention. And then pay attention not only to what people say, but what they actually do in their own lives and in their own communities. Pay attention, bruh.
You know what, GG? I got one last thing, and I'll say this and I'll shut up. In terms of, you know, what we're talking about, you know, what follows the womb, right? I wonder what the stance or what black women themselves would think about, would think about this action in history.
Well, you know,
because I know that it shapes their self perception. Because again, like I said, it's a deep rabbit hole, right? So now this is the whole thing of beauty. Why? Who wants to mate with who? Etc. So I'm not. So again, I know that it's not. I know that this is about. Black men specifically. I'm just saying that sometime in the future that I would like to see how Black women themselves respond to this type of information. Again, not now, but sometime in the future.
For sure. I can give you some indication. I mean, right now they're so indoctrinated by, whatever white women say. And, they're used to, living in a slave-based culture. This, like, cutting fathers out is a slave-based balkanization tactic, man.
Yeah.
And to participate in it and to do so enthusiastically is the seat of insanity. You really don't want to get us out of this shit. Because in order to get us out, you're going to have strong Black men who are thinking not just about how to please women, but how to fucking run shit and challenge other powers, other men. Cool. But how can you challenge other men and you got your women using the system to challenge you so you can't even get on your own feet and be autonomous? Not in the indoctrination of your own child. This is how fucked up we are right now. But some motherfuckers see this shit as liberatory. Like they smashing the patriarchy. There's no way for you motherfuckers to smash the patriarchy unless you're gonna smash the military, the corporations, and the fucking government. And having a few token women in these positions, that's not smashing no fucking patriarchy, dog. That's a whole bunch of bullshit and malarkey. Now, it's a lot of women in the university system. Don't get that twisted. But come on, man. Like, if men begin to say, fuck this shit, I'm talking about white dudes. If they say, sit your ass down, what other choice are these women going to have other than to sit their asses down?
That's true.
I ain't trying to be ignorant. I'm just being objective and impartial about the world. In terms of, like, how, the power is disseminated throughout a global schema. Like, unless they ready to get out in the trenches and shit, I say put them in the trenches anyway. That's just my viewpoint. Shit, and women have always been in the trenches any fucking way. Not these ladies though. Boy, it's a special breed of fucking woman over here in America, dog. Real talk. Real talk. But yeah, we'll talk about this on the next one, man. So just let me know, hit me up, through Facebook or whatever, and then we'll get the next one going. We need to keep these going, like, if we can do it weekly or bi-weekly, whatever your preference is.
Okay. Yeah, man. Then how about this then? Then I can see you next week if you're free. It's up weekly or bi-weekly. Yeah, let's do it next week. I'm down for doing it next week. Same time? Yeah, same time, same. Same Green Gorilla channel, same Green Gorilla time.
For sure. Appreciate you, my brother, man.
All right,
and I appreciate all of y'all, man. And we'll holler at y'all on the next one, man. Y'all be peaceful, okay?
Real.
One.